And welcome everyone to Microsoft Teams training today. I wanted to start out with kind of talking about getting into Microsoft Teams, some features that you may or may not be familiar with. And then through that, we'll talk about different benefits that you would have being a finance professional or an accountant. Okay, because Microsoft Teams has so many different features to it that really go beyond using meetings and chat that we want to make sure that you understand and give you some examples of how you would be able to use those. So first off, if you want to have your Microsoft Teams open and ready to use, I want to start out by just talking about a couple of things on the left-hand side, which is your navigation bar. So I'm in the most recent version of Microsoft Teams and I'm using the desktop app, but just so you know, you could also log into your Microsoft account online and you could open up Teams in the web version as well. It looks and feels exactly the same as the desktop version. Teams is also available as a mobile app. I do have it open as a mobile app on my phone here with another account logged in, so if I need to demonstrate anything, I can use that account to communicate. And it has all the same bells and whistles. Of course, being a mobile app, it looks a little bit different than the online version and the desktop version. But one thing about the left-hand side that I want to point out is it is customizable. You can rearrange the order of the icons just by clicking and dragging and moving them. So wherever you want them to go, just click and drag the icons. Some people like to put them in a specific order. That makes it easier for them to get to them. And also it's customizable. So I already have an icon that has been pinned to the navigation bar, and it's called Microsoft Planner. I use Planner so much that I wanted to have quick, easy access to it while I'm here in Teams without having to go to an internet browser to open up the desktop app or to open up the online app. But just so you're aware, anything can be added to that navigation bar, or you can remove commands as well. But how that happens is two different ways. One way is go to the ... for view more apps, and then you could just search for the app that you're looking for. Once you know which app you want, all you have to do is click on it and it's going to automatically add that as an open app. But if you click on another icon from the navigation pane, like if I go check my activities or anything like that, it is going to automatically close that. So if you want that to stay active on the left-hand side, you'll want to go to the icon, do a right click, and left click on Pin so that it stays there as you navigate to the other parts of Microsoft Teams. Okay? But speaking of these other parts of Microsoft Teams, starting at the top of my navigation pane is a activity option. That activity is going to give you different notifications, whether the notification is meeting related, chat related. I also have a couple of these that I have in mind that are coming from a SharePoint document library, which we'll get into here in a minute. But I had sent a file for approval and I was notified directly here in Teams through the activities category of the application. So we have a lot of different things that can actually show up in your activity. How do you know you should go to a different part of Teams? How do you know there's something there for you? Well, one way to know that is by looking at your taskbar down at the bottom of your screen. Your Teams icon will have a red circle with a number if you have any notifications directed towards you in the system, in the application itself. When I'm here in Teams, I know on the left-hand side that I have a new chat because there's a red dot with a 1. So I know I have one new thing in the chat. So if you get a new activity, it's going to automatically, of course, notify you with a red dot and a number as to how many new items are in that area. So just so you're familiar with how all that piece of it works. And then one other thing before we dive into some examples and some different real highlight benefits of using Microsoft Teams is I want to make sure you understand the settings behind the scenes. At the top right of your Teams app, you'll find a dot, dot, dot menu. From that, you can click on it and then click Settings. What that's going to do is take you into the settings category, and on the left-hand side, you will see different setting options like general, appearance, etc. Whichever one you click on from the left is going to give you the options on the right. It is a good idea to go through each one of those different categories on the left just to make sure that everything is set up the way that you want to use the application. You really want to take advantage of, having it work with you and do things for you that you don't have to do manually. So just to point out a couple of things, if for some reason you're not getting a notification, you could always go to notifications and activities, and this is one way to modify the notifications that you're getting and how they show up, and different options like at mentions, channel and team at mentions, and things like that. Meeting different notifications, you get presents. So kind of run through each of the categories and see if there's anything that you need to change. And I'm going to mention calls as well. This calls category, by default, it has a call forwarding turned on. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit as to how to do a call, because that's a great feature in Microsoft Teams, and I'll explain that here in a few minutes. But just so you're aware, after 20 seconds, if you don't respond to the notification that somebody's calling you, it will automatically go into voicemail. There is a generic voicemail included, but if you would prefer to record your own greeting, because maybe you're going on vacation and you need to change your recording to say you're out of the office, you could do that. You could do that, change your voicemail at any time just by clicking on this icon here towards the middle of this window for recorded greeting. So just so you could see, there's lots of different options available under the settings category that I highly recommend you do check out. But anyway, enough about the settings. Let's get back to talking about, what are some benefits of actually using Microsoft Teams when you're in finance and accounting. So one of the options is going to be Teams themselves. So in Teams, we have the option to use Teams. And there's a lot of benefits to using a team. It can be a central collaboration area. It can also be where you store documents. It can be where you can access version history with your documents. You could be doing posts instead of emails to make sure everybody sees the information in the post that is directly related to whatever the channel might be. Because teams actually consist of channels. So you have the name of the team, you have the name of a channel, and then in each channel, you will have the ability to add tabs. By default, you will have a post or a conversation tab. You will also have a shared tab, which is where all files go to, which is actually a document library. We'll get into a little bit more of that here in a minute, but when it comes to structuring your teams and your channels, you want to plan a little bit ahead of time before you create a new team, or whoever in your company creates the team. We can have a finance or an accounting team, and everybody that is a part of that department or needs access to the information could be an owner, a member, or a guest. So let me explain the three different types of roles someone can have in teams. One role is the owner. Whoever creates the team is automatically an owner, but a member could be turned into an owner. And a member is really people within your same domain. So people that are a part of your organization are automatically added as a member, but could be turned into an owner. Owners have the most rights. We'll talk about that in just a second because it's important to understand some settings with a new team. But you also could have guests. Guests are going to be people from outside your organization, and they do not have as many rights to modify the team and things like that as they would if they were a member. But anytime you have an external user, they automatically are added as a guest user. But here's a good example of if you had a finance and or accounting team created in Teams, what kind of channels might you want? Well, you could have a general channel where you're going to be putting things like announcements, just general information that everybody in that department or who's a part of that team needs access to. Policies, meeting notes. We could have a month-end close channel where we could have um, our journal entry review. We could have our closed calendar, our reconciliation files in there. We could have an AP, we could have an AR, so we could have our vendor management, we could have our revenue management, we could have payroll. And notice how after payroll, I have private. We don't always need everybody that's a part of the team to have access to every channel. So built into Microsoft Teams is the ability to have a private channel. A private channel is where we can add just specific members. Not everybody that's a part of the team needs access to every channel. We just add who we want to the private ones. And if you're not a member of it, you won't even see it on your list. The channel won't be visible to you. So payroll might be one of those options where you want some confidential salary or wage information. Also, you could have an annual audit. An annual audit could have audit requests, the BCP list, it could have work papers, etc. We could have a SALT channel where we're going to keep track of quarterly estimates and different things. So we want to find a central location that you can work together with your department or your team themselves. So let me give you an example here. Back into Microsoft Teams, if I go to the left-hand side and click on Teams, I do have a team already created called Accounting Department. And when I go to that team, you can see I have a general channel, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and a few others. I want to point out a couple of these. One is the managers channel. The manager's channel is private. I know that because if I hesitate on it, the name of the channel, it says private, but also it's got this padlock icon next to it. But then I also have this one called Tax Info. We have an external company that we work with for tax-related information, so I shared that channel with an external party. They can't have access to anything else in the team, only that tax info channel, but that is another type of channel that you can have. So we have standard channels that are available to everybody in the team. We have private that we just pick and choose who we want to be a member of private channels. Then we can have shared channels. Shared channels can be shared with people that are not a part of the team, and they only have access to that specific channel. Okay, so of course, if I wanted to add some of these others, like I wanted to have, a payroll channel, I could add a payroll private channel very easily just by going to my accounting department, name of my team, doing a right click, and then choosing add channel. When you do that, you would give the channel a name, and then under the select, you could choose the type of channel you want. I'm going to choose private and then click create. So that payroll channel is only going to be available for whoever it is that I invite. So here now I can add members. So if they're a member of the team, I can add them to be a member of that channel. You can always come back and add and remove people as needed. But when you're done, you just click add and it will automatically add that channel, and that person automatically now sees that channel. It automatically shows up for them. So great option to have. Now notice when I created that new channel, on the top right, it gave me two tabs. It gave me a conversation tab, which is for communicating, so posting with others about the name of that tab. And then it also gave me a shared tab. So every channel is going to have either a post or a conversation. They're going to have a shared tab, but then after that, you might also see a notes tab. A notes tab is going to be for an actual OneNote notebook where you could actually have shared notes with the other people that are a part of that channel based on whichever channel name you happen to be in. So if I wanted to, put some information out in a OneNote notebook about accounts receivable, I would go to the AR channel to do it. I wouldn't put it in invoicing or whatever. I would put it in the appropriate channel that the information is related to. Now, after that, you would, of course, have the ability to be able to add other tabs to each channel, depending on the needs of each channel. But before we dive into those, let's go back and talk a little bit more about some of the other benefits that we have for using Microsoft Teams. Permission and access control for sensitive financial information. By using those private channels, that's a great way to have an area with all kinds of information that are directly related to working with that subject. So we could do that. Those standard channels we mentioned, and we mentioned the fact that we have guest access for external people. Otherwise, everybody else is going to be a member by default. So it does give you a lot of secure capabilities by doing that. Also using Teams and SharePoint for secure document management. So just so you're familiar with this, every time a team is created, it creates a SharePoint site. We can also create a SharePoint site that is a team site. So from SharePoint or from Teams, you're going to get a SharePoint site that can be connected directly to Teams. So you get the benefit of being able to have SharePoint in the background for doing other things that you need everybody in your department or your team to have access to. I'll show you how to get into it through Teams in just a moment to get to the SharePoint site. But key benefits for SharePoint is going to be encryption, is going to be automated version history, which we get in all of cloud-based file storage. So whether it's OneDrive or it's saved to a SharePoint document library, we get metadata capabilities. We have a recycle bin. We could do retention labels. There's metadata behind the scenes where we can be putting in additional columns and store information on our files. So great way to keep track of things. So keeping everything organized and easy to find is a huge benefit of using Microsoft Teams, where we could have our vendor records, we could have audit documentation, our forecasting models, our journal entry templates, whatever it is that you need, your month-end closing calendar, budget files, tax papers, just really making sure that everybody that is going to access the team and the channels has the right tools available for them to use to do collaboration with others. So anything in a team can have what is referred to as live collaboration, where you can have multiple people collaborating together at the same time. I want to point out these practical organizational tips also. Pin critical files at the top of each channel. Use folders sparingly. Establish naming conventions for your files, of course. Use at mentions to draw attention to a specific user or a group of people. Save important posts by using a bookmark feature in the Post tab. So lots of different things that you want to kind of think about that we can be doing as a part of Microsoft Teams. Also, compliance and governance is built into Microsoft Teams. So finance teams must comply with different regulations. So of course, IRS, etc. You can have internal and external audit standards, and Microsoft Teams is built to handle all of that. Some scenarios where Teams replaces how we used to do things with our financial workflow. Before Teams, everything really was done by, yes, we could have electronic files, but to share those files, they either had to be managed in a network drive or we would share them by doing email. Attachments could get lost. It could be the wrong version of the application for that person. There really wasn't a good audit trail with those files. Plus, if a file got emailed to somebody, they could actually share it with other people by forwarding it off. So with Teams, we don't need to worry about that. We can have the files automatically versioned. So we could go back to a previous version of a file that is saved within our shared tabs of our channels. We can have templates stored right in the channels as well for any of the documents that you use monthly, weekly, daily, those kind of things. Your audit request list could be tracked in a Microsoft list right within Teams because we can add that app to any channel. All conversations connected to whatever the name of the channel is that's part of your team, they can all be kept in the post and we can search for them. So if we need to look back on something, we have that information all in one central place. We don't have to worry about jumping into email, jumping into our files, going to another application. We also have approvals that can be done directly through our document libraries, which are in Teams in the channel, the shared tab. So you want to be thinking about those types of features as we kind of talk about using Microsoft Teams. So task management, file sharing, real-time communication, and security and compliance are huge parts of using Microsoft Teams for finance and accounting. So we've kind of talked about some of these already, so I won't go through all those. And we talked about a team and we talked about the channels, but there is 3 different types of teams that you can use depending on your rights. So when a new team gets created, if you are an administrator, you could create an org-wide team, which is automatically available to everybody within your company. We can have public teams and private teams. Public teams are teams that are accessible by everybody, but it's not just going to automatically show up in their list of teams. They would have to search for it and add it. But most common, 99% of them, are actually going to be private teams where we invite who we want to be a part of the team. Now, how are Teams and SharePoint connected? Well, Teams, SharePoint are the same. So every time a team is created, it creates a SharePoint site. So automatic site creation when a team is created. But if someone goes in and creates a new SharePoint site, they could choose between a communication site and creating a team site. If they choose a team site, it automatically creates a team in Teams that is connected to the SharePoint site. So either way, the backbone of Teams is SharePoint. Teams channels have that shared tab, which is a SharePoint document library. It has all the same bells and whistles of if you were in SharePoint versus in Teams, you get exactly the same commands, you get exactly the same menus. The only difference is going to be the option to be able to open from SharePoint. I should say from Teams, we can open the SharePoint site. So I'll show you how that works. So it's great to be able to have these channels in our Teams and be able to have all this integration and the collaboration and the strength of the SharePoint for permission levels as well. So we have extra ways of having additional tools by having that SharePoint site, not just Teams. So Teams is where we can go to collaborate. We can set up and share our files, but those files could also be accessed through the SharePoint site. So let me take you back to Microsoft Teams again. And in this accounting department, I'm going to go to the accounts payable channel. And at the top right, I have a post tab, which of course is where you can go to put in information that you want everybody to know about related to the name of the team. Like we have a new employee that's going to be starting, we could do an announcement for that. But a big part of this is going to be the shared tab. So the shared tab, which is here by default every time a channel is created, every channel has their own post tab, their own shared tab. This is a SharePoint document library. So it has a menu going across the top that you can use to manage the library, but then you can also manage the files that are within your library. So if I wanted to have a folder that is going to be directly related to working with vendor information. I want to have my vendor files all stored into one folder. I could just go to the new at the top left of the right-hand side of the screen, and I could click folder, then I could name it vendors and press enter, and it will automatically add that as a new folder. We can then, of course, save files to that folder if you wanted to. By selecting the folder, you could create a new file, or you could bring in existing information. You could always go to the new again and tell it that you want to create a new Excel workbook, OneNote notebook, whatever it is that you want to have available to be saved within that vendor file. So if I want an Excel workbook, I just click that. It's going to automatically open the Excel workbook. I can give it a name at the top left, and I'm just going to call it vendor contacts. And then I could put any information in here that I need to store about vendors. So as soon as that file is a part of that SharePoint document library, what that's going to do is start the version history. Even if I close this file, it's going to be here, and I could go to upload, grab a file from my computer somewhere. I'm just going to grab an open file here. And then once it's brought in to the SharePoint document library, that's when the version history starts. It doesn't matter what history that file had prior to coming in. It starts with the version history once it's here. So if I brought that file in and now I open it, by default, it's going to open it in. Let me bring that screen over to the screen here. You can see here's my file, and if I wanted to go in and I can make changes to this file, do whatever it is that I need to for formatting, add in new items, whatever it is that I want to do. So let me format that as headings, and maybe I want to go to my data tab and I want to turn on filtering so that I can filter my data. We have the ability, of course, to be able to do that directly through Teams. Once I'm done, I go ahead and close it, and because it is saved to a cloud, it automatically saves those changes for us. So I can have all of that information that's directly related to vendors be kept right in that channel. But what are some bells and whistles that we have within these document libraries that you want to take advantage of? So I'm going to right click on this file that I just brought in. We've talked about the version history already, but what if I need to make changes to that file? But I don't want other people to go in there while I make the changes. One thing that you could do is towards the bottom of this menu, after you right click on a file or click the dot, dot, dot menu, down at the bottom, you're going to find this more category. From there, you could choose to check the file out. What that's going to do is add a red circle next to the name of the file, and others that come into this library would know that you have the file checked out, which means they can open the file, but they can't make changes to it. And they're not going to see any changes that you're actively doing while you have it checked out. So I'm going to open that file again. I'm going to make my necessary changes. Like let's say that I want to have a new sheet and I want to name it my labels, because I'm going to be putting in some different information about, I'm going to have different countries. Canada. I'm going to add all this information to these labels, and it's going to be used in data validation on other sheets and stuff like that, but I don't need other people to see it. I could right click on that sheet and I could hide it. But okay, I made all these changes while I was checked out on that file. I'm going to go ahead and close the file. I'm going to say, yes, I want to check it back in. And when I check that file back in, it will become available to everybody. And I have the option of adding in version comments. So that's going to be a new version of the file because I made changes to it. And I could come in and say, added the labels as a new sheet. And I could click OK, and that's going to end up being stored as part of the version of that file. Now, it should disappear. This red circle should disappear in just a second, but otherwise a different way to check it back in if you don't get that window that pops up, hesitate on the name of the file like you see right now, and I can click check in. Then I could write in my comments, click check in, and the file would automatically be checked in. Okay, now my file was already checked in, just so you know. But because that file was modified multiple times, if I go back and right click on the name of that file again, I can now go to the menu and choose version history, and that's going to take me into the different versions of that file. So I first created it, then I made changes to it, then I went back in and checked it out, and you can see the one that I checked out has the comments in the comments column under this version history. So that's pretty great that we have that. Now I'm just going to go ahead and close this, but I should show you. What if I wanted to go back to the first version of this file? I could click on the modified date column, and it's going to automatically take me into that version of that file. And you can see at the top under the ribbon, it says previous version. To make this become the latest version, I could click restore. Then this version of the file would become the current one. I'd still have all the other ones to go back to at any time that I needed to, but it's a great option to be able to restore those if you needed to. We get control over that, as opposed to on a network drive, we would have to go to IT to get it off the backup. But I'm just going to close this version history. A couple of other things that I wanted to make sure you understood here in when you are using a document library here in Teams on these channels is at the top, when you are not selected on a file, up at the top, this menu is related to working with the entire document library. And one of the options is to add a shortcut to your OneDrive. That would give you quick, easy access to this folder of information. I'm going to click Add Shortcut to OneDrive, and what that does is it adds the shortcut to that channel to be available when you are in OneDrive and or File Explorer. So if you want to be able to know that those files are available from other areas, that would be a great option to do. And if I wanted to go into the SharePoint document library itself, to the SharePoint site, you can either right-click on the name of a file or go to the menu at the top and choose Open in SharePoint. What that is going to do is take you directly to the SharePoint site that is related to that team. So you could see when I opened it at the top left, it's got the name of the team, and I know it's a team site because it's got the Teams icon here, and it took me directly to that same folder I was in that was a part of the accounts payable channel. On the left-hand side, if you go to the menu, you could click Home to take you to the home page of that accounting department SharePoint site. So it automatically creates this, then whoever you have that is going to design it, put information out there that everybody in the accounting department can have access to. Somebody can design the pages for the site so they can have useful information for everybody. But notice on the left-hand side, it says Documents. If I click Documents, it's going to take me to the main document library where I will have access to every channel's shared folder. So here's the accounts payable, here's the accounts receivable folder, all of them are listed here, chart of accounts, AR, etc. So if I click on this accounts payable, it's going to show me all of the different folders and files that are a part of that channel's document library. I could go back into the vendors from here and work with any of those files just like I did when I was in Microsoft Teams. I get the same right-click menu, exactly the same as if you were in Teams. Now, I'm just going to close this SharePoint site right now and go back to Microsoft Teams and show you just a couple of other things that are very beneficial when you're in finance and or accounting. If you go back to a file, let's say that we have this vendor contacts. You can see that the name of it is actually spelt wrong. I accidentally clicked on it. I didn't mean to click on the name of it. I meant to right click, and then you could go in and left click on rename, change the name of the file, and then press enter and it will update the name of that file. So you can manage that file by using that menu, like the dot, 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 or right clicking. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is built in to these SharePoint document libraries is going to be the ability to create steps, which are rules that we can do that are part of Power Automate. So we can automate workflows that are either directly related to a file or that are related to working with the entire document library. But with this vendor contacts, let's say that I need somebody to review the file. I'm going to go to this automate for this file. I'm going to hesitate on flows, and I'm going to click this option called request sign off. Request sign off is a built-in workflow that you can use to, send an invoice to somebody that, the manager of a department, you received an invoice and now you need them to review the invoice to make sure it's good to go, that you should pay it, that kind of a thing. You could choose who are you going to send it to. I'm just going to send it to myself. So you can see how the workflow goes. And then you type in a message, please review this vendor list, blah, 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 vendor list. I would put in whatever I want them to see. Once you go to the bottom right and click Run Flow, it's using 5 different applications to run that workflow. It's going to send a notification to me in Outlook, but it's also going to notify me right here in Teams in the activity category in just a second. So you'll see a red dot show up in my activities in just a second. And banner notification shows up on the bottom right of your screen. So you get 3 notifications that you need to approve or reject a file that somebody has sent you. So as soon as that shows up, I'll go back to it. But just so you know, the 5 apps that it's using is Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, Approvals, and the notification apps. So the approvals and notifications are apps that are part of the Power Automate workflow apps. Notice on the left-hand side, my activity came through. So if I click on it, here you can see that it says Jolyn Reen sent you a request. On the right-hand side, I see the message that she typed in. I can see a link to the file, so I would go out, open up the file, look it over. Then down at the bottom, I could add in comments. Maybe I would say something like, change the formatting to our ABC company blue color, then share with the team, or something like that. And then you click the icon for approve or reject, and it's going to automatically send them a notification back, and it's tracking it back in the document library. Right now it says pending. It's pending approval. So once you click reject or approve, it's going to notify the person back via Outlook, here in Teams, a banner notification. They get all these different options. And then, so right now you can see it came back to me and said it was approved because I was both parties of it, and back in the document library, which, by the way, on the left-hand side, if I go back to the team, I can go to accounts payable, go to the shared channel. The columns that you see when you're in these document libraries, you have a column that is called sign-off status. The sign-off status will show if the file was approved or rejected. So you could see this vendor contacts, it says approved under that column for sign-off status. So it automatically has this tracking mechanism built right in. So those are great options to use and huge benefits of being in a team. But if you are the one that is creating a team, creating these channels and maintaining things, you want to go to the name of the team and do a right click. You want to go into Manage Team, and I generally will do this before I even invite anybody to be a part of the team. Because what I want to do is go to the tools at the top of the right-hand side and click on Settings. I want to go to Settings. Here you could edit the name and the icon that appears, because you could change the image. You could see on the left-hand side I have a different one for clinic. But the big part of this is actually going to be the category called member permissions. You can see these checkboxes for these different permission levels. You will check and uncheck the features that you want your members to have with those channels and tabs and whatever it is you're working with. So do you want to allow members to be able to create and update channels? I don't. I usually uncheck that. I really only leave the last two checked. I uncheck everything else because it really should just be the owners that can delete things and restore them and create new items. So it's up to you, whoever is in charge of that team. But just so you know, these are things that you will want to check out. Make sure you look that over. Okay, make the decisions. So anyway, just wanted to quick mention that, but let's move on to a few other reasons why you might want to use Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has, of course, those permission levels that we mentioned, which is absolutely fantastic because when we add different team members in, we can choose if we want them to be an owner to help us manage the site, the team, or if they are just going to be a member coming from your organization, or of course, like I mentioned, a guest is an option as well. So what else can we do in Microsoft Teams besides chatting, besides using Teams, besides using the calendar for our events and the activities? Well, something that I use on a pretty regular basis is calls. I'm not sure if you've done any calls yet in Microsoft Teams, but there's a calls category on the left-hand side. Once you go to it, you can see a history of your incoming and outgoing calls, and if you had any voicemail messages, you'd be able to go back to those as well. So you could see I had a call from Matthew, I had a call from student one. So we have the ability of being able, and by the way, when you have a voicemail, by the way, you can actually listen to the voicemail and see the contents of the voicemail in Outlook because it's going to email you the voicemail. Plus, you could come here and it's going to notify you in the activities. So you get notified all over the place, so there's no way that you're going to miss that communication. But what is the benefit of doing a call? And where do we have to go here to make a call? You don't have to come to the calls category to make a call. I could be in a chat and call the person I was chatting with. So let's say that I'm in a chat with student one and I just want to talk to them. I want to be able to share my screen with them. That would be benefits for making a call. Like let's say that we sent a file for approval and we want to talk to the person about the comments they had wrote in about the invoice. You know, this invoice was really supposed to be $500, not $1,000, whatever the case might be. You want to talk to the person. Well, one way to access their call capability is to go to their profile circle, wherever that profile circle is available, whether it's through Outlook, it's through Microsoft Project, you're here in Microsoft Teams and you're in a chat with that person, wherever you're at, and see their email address, basically, their profile circle. You can communicate with them. At the top right, I have this, looks like a video camera. If I click that drop down arrow, I could say I want to call this person, but I want it to be a video call or an audio call. You can always turn on and turn off your cameras during a call. So I'm going to click audio call just so you could see what's going to happen.
Oh, it looks like Jolynn may have lost connection there briefly. I'm sure she's trying to reconnect really quickly. So we'll just give her 30 seconds. I apologize for the interruption here, but
Yeah,
great.
much better. So what's going to happen is when you call somebody, if you don't answer in 20 seconds by default, it's going to take you to their voicemail. You can, of course, then leave them a voicemail message. They'll have access to it, like I said, in multiple places. They'll know, they'll get notified. They'll be able to listen to it and or read it because it actually types it out for you as well. But during that call, you're going to have a menu very similar to the menu you see right now while you're in a Teams meeting, where you're going to be able to share your screen with the person. You can turn on and turn off your camera. You have the capability of being able to record the call by going to the More category. You could say you want to record it. You can go into the chat. From the chat, you could be sharing files during that call. So you have so many great capabilities. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of things that I really just want to talk to somebody. I don't want to sit and just chat back and forth. I don't want to just use my phone, because then my phone, they can't see the screen. I don't have the recording capabilities. It's easier to do it directly through Microsoft Teams instead. So you want to think about using that. And it's going to be tracked, because if I go back to the calls category here in Teams, it knows that I did that outgoing call with student one. If I want to call that person back, I can go to a previous call, click the call icon, and I can call that person back at any time. So we have a lot of capability of being able to get back to someone. You also have the option in Outlook. And I wanted to just briefly show you this here real quick. I'm going to go to Outlook, and I'm going to go to an email, and let's say that I wanted to call Matthew. I'm not going to call you Matthew, but if I go to an email from Matthew, if I hesitate on his profile on the email in the reading pane here, you can see it gives me a menu of different information about Matthew. And one of those is to call him. And that would automatically take me into a Teams call. So you don't have to be in Teams to actually utilize the application. We are very connected with all of our other 365 apps with Teams. So we're connected with SharePoint, Outlook, Bookings, Planner, etc. And speaking of Planner, by the way, I forgot to show you something back in Teams again. So let me get back to Teams. Back here in Teams, when I was in Teams on the left-hand side, and I went to my accounting department team, that channel called Accounts Payable, every channel that you have in your team can have different tabs going across the top right. You'll by default all have a post or conversations, depending on if it's private or not. You will have the shared tab. And if it is a standard channel, you will also have a tab called Notes that you can rename, because you might want to name it, because what it is, and I have one right here called Accounting Department Notebook. And basically what this is a OneNote notebook that we all have access to in this channel, where we could be all tracking notes that are directly related to accounts payable, just so you could see that you will get that with a standard channel. Then you can add other tabs to be at the top, which are technically an app. So depending on what someone wants to work with. So I have one called AP Tasks. This is actually a Microsoft Planner that we added so that all the tasks that are related to AP that need to get done, we can track them all in this shared planner. We can set up different buckets to organize the tasks that go into the planner, but everybody has access to it. And then we can assign a user, a member of the team, to do each of the tasks, so we can keep track of who's responsible for them. So that's a great app that you could be using starting today with your teams for any type of finance or accounting related information. Now, there's a couple of others that I wanted to mention. I have a tab called Issue Tracker. What this issue tracker is a Microsoft list. So let's say that you have policies and procedures that you need to keep track of, and you want to track all of them in a Microsoft list because you want to be able to have the intelligence of like a database type environment. We have a whole nother class just on Microsoft lists that Smart Dolphins provides for you guys. But just so you know, that could be a tab that we want to have available for everybody in accounts receivable, or whichever channel it is that you want one. You can just add that app, and you can connect an existing list, or you could start a brand new list. So great options to be able to have easily accessible by anybody that is a part of that team and or that channel. Because what if it's a private channel? Like I had this manager's channel. We don't have exactly the same tabs. I'm going to have a post tab, a shared tab, and then I have this accounting manager's notes. I didn't spell accounting right, you could see, but I could right click on the name of that and I could say I want to rename it. So I could spell it correctly, just so you could see accounting, and I'll keep managers. Accounting, I don't need an S on there, and I'm going to click save and it will automatically update it. But if I wanted to add something else that the accounting managers could have access to for another app, I could click the plus sign at the top. Then I could go into apps and choose which app do I want to add in. So if I wanted to add a link to a website that everybody will have access to, I want to add in something related to Excel because we have an Excel workbook that we're working on all the time. I don't want to have to go to the shared, go to the folder to try and find the file. I want to make it easy to get to. I could actually have a file be a tab within that channel. So it makes it much easier. So here's the only file that I had available in there. So I'm going to choose that one, click save. It was the only one I had in my shared. But now we have that as a tab that we can get to that workbook just by clicking on the name of the tab. If I want to go back to the post tab, I can. If I want to go back to that Excel file, I just click on the tab. So those tabs can be very, very helpful for you to be able to do that collaboration with your group, with your entire team. Okay, so when it comes to using Microsoft Teams when you are in finance and accounting, we've walked through several different benefits and several different examples, but you got to kind of think about what's going to work best for your group. What should you name the different channels? What should be the tabs that you're going to have in each channel? How do you really want to manage all of that? Make sure you have somebody that kind of plans it out a little bit before you create it and before, have it created and kind of ready to be used before you invite other members. But it is the backbone of SharePoint. So we have the power of SharePoint with our Microsoft Teams, which is absolutely fantastic. We get the security behind the scenes. We get the integration with other applications, especially, of course, SharePoint and OneDrive. OneDrive is directly available through Teams. And we had that shortcut, which I didn't show you. Let me jump back there real quick and show you that. If I go to the left-hand side and I click on OneDrive, I can have access to my SharePoint document libraries by going to my files, which is everything in my OneDrive. Here's that accounting department, accounts payable. This is a link coming from my SharePoint document library in Teams. I also will have access to that in File Explorer. So if I come out here to File Explorer and I'm in my OneDrive, I have access to that accounting department accounts payable right here because I did that add shortcut to OneDrive. So I can get in and access my files. I won't get the same options on the right click because I'm in Windows File Explorer. Or if I go back to OneDrive, I won't have the same exact access as if I were in Teams. Because if I right click, I'm only going to get what's available through OneDrive. You get the most capability by going directly to the team itself. Okay? But I can't say enough about really having that central location where this is where things go. You don't have to jump through hoops to try and find things. So Matthew, I'm going to send it back to you. Did we have any questions come through